A banana split for men, a baked potato, beef stew, mashed potatoes on top, bacon, and melted cheese. So like always, we start off with the prep work. And for this, I used about 1.5 pounds of chuck. And cutting them down, I'm also making sure I get man-sized pieces. For the seasonings, I used a little bit of Montreal steak seasoning, salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and a little bit of accent. And you want to season generously because also too, this is going to into the broth and then into the gravy, which I'm going to keep some of the seasonings because I know I'm going to need it. And I'm not trying to remove all of the fat, just huge heaping lumps of fat because it just, and some people believe that a little fat is okay, and I believe a little fat is okay, but when you got huge chunks, it's just not worth it. And I'm about to pan sear. The pan has been heating up, just a little bit of oil. I begin chucking them in as you see in the video. And this is also sped up so you don't have to sit there and watch me slowly throw in huge chunks of meat. I don't know what made me came up with this idea for this recipe, but I thought it would just work together. You have baked potato and gravy. You got steak that goes with potato beautifully, and gravy is always good. And originally this plan was never gonna have vegetables, but I know the Mirepoix adds flavor and I wanted to get that. So I cut up some, you'll see in the video, I cut up some very large pieces and I was planning on removing them. Then as I smell the food and the smells and I just kept it in there. And when you're searing the meat, make sure to leave some char. Char is actually a good thing as long as it's not burnt to a crisp. Here I'm making the Mirepoix, a nice yellow onion. Carrots I diced up into huge pieces. Onions I'm gonna slice up into huge pieces. And celery. I should have put a little bit of garlic in it. Garlic actually does add a nice flavor. But I was trying to keep this simple, and be honest with you, I should have pan-seared the vegetables. But instead, I mixed it with the broth, mixed it with the meat, a little bit more seasoning, and I put them in the oven, allowing the meat to cook, everything get to know each other slowly instead of quickly. And I know my knife skills are not the greatest, but I try. So, yeah. Here I'm about to start on the celery. Big, huge chunks, making sure it's clean. I didn't want any of the vegetables, but I can at least tell my doctor I had some vegetables this year. I just had to cut those pieces down, didn't I? Man, it's just not needed. I knew it. Chuck it in there. And here comes the steak. Oh, nice big pieces because you don't want, you know, dainty, small. This is for men. This is for people who like meat. And I love a good meat and gravy, potato. And this is a broth that I used a little bit of drippings and mixed in to continue to add the flavors together. Here I'm adding a little bit more seasoning because I know the broth itself has no extra seasoning. And I really wanted to keep the flavor going from what I started. And at this point, I wrapped it in aluminum foil. I set it about 325 to 350 for 2 or 3 hours. Everything gets to know each other and everything soften up. Plus, I want to develop more flavor to the broth because I'm gonna use the broth to make the gravy. And how I make my gravy is a trade secret. I'm not gonna go there, but I don't start with a roux and other slow measures. And it doesn't come out flour chalky either. This is the peekaboo at 1.5 hours. I had to do it. And of course I had to burn my tongue several times tasting it. The meat has been drained. I turn the heat up high. All that juicy goodness now needs to start boiling down. You want to reduce maybe half. If you want it thinner, I say 1/4. But I wanted something really molasses drippy, kind of slow drippy all over. Yeah. And also, as I said, don't overheat it and let it sit there and burn. Keep it moving, keep it evaporating. Taste. If it doesn't taste right, add a little more. Put my vegetables and meat back in. Of course, I didn't turn on the heat, which evaporation still works. And here I'm testing. tasted okay. Still a little lacking. It was a little less on the salt. And that's why it's always better to salt and season a little instead of seasoning a whole hell of a lot. Because you can easily season more, but you can't take it back when you put too much in. Here, one huge potato. I baked at 400 for 40-45 minutes because I really wanted it well done. Then I cut it into basically like a canoe. Wore the top off and burned my fingers because it was scorching hot. I use an ice cream scooper. I went in, I started removing that potato. And you want to leave a little bit of the walls. The walls are going to be beautiful when it mixes with the gravy. Trust this. If anything, you want gravy and potato. So I'm burning my fingers. I'm pulling out the potato, making a nice little canoe. And then I start in with the beef stew. Yes, I kept the vegetables I really shouldn't have, but you're going to get chunks of steak, onions, a little bit of celery, big chunks of carrots, which I should have cut down, but like I said, I needed some kind of vegetables in my life. Then I took the remaining potato guts and I made mashed potatoes out of it. A little bit of butter, a little bit of seasoning, and just garnish it like you do a float, basically. Which is why I think this is like a man's banana split kind of thing. Get the potatoes on there. Get the bacon bits. Oh, the bacon bits. They had the salty to everything. And then I finished it off with mozzarella and white cheddar. I know it's a crazy mix, but I didn't have regular cheddar and I wanted some simple cheeses to just take it over the top. I don't know another way to say it. So I'm layering on a thick layer of cheese. Once the cheese is there, I melted it down. Once it was melted down, my stomach was grumbling. I didn't bother waiting around. God. I started digging into that monster. Oh, and I gotta admit, it's meat heavy. That's why, I'm a man. But I got some vegetables in there. And I got baked potato, and I got a very rich gravy. It's got a lot of flavor to it, just say it like that. Decadent, yeah, perfect word, decadent gravy. And originally I had no intentions of having any vegetables at all. I was gonna cook the steak down and then pull it apart to it's just strands of steak and gravy inside of a big potato boat with mashed potatoes on the top and melted cheese and bacon.